What's happening, troops? Welcome back to our Little House in the Prairies podcast. Today we have episode 4, and we're joined by a very special guest, DJ and producer out of Winnipeg, Manitoba. We have JNL. How's it going, John?
It is going great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, man. I'm a big fan of the work that you do, and I've been following you for a little while now, and the music that you make is absolutely phenomenal. So it was one of those ones that I just had to keep chasing to get you on here.
Nice. Yeah, it took a little while, but we got it going here. So
Yeah, definitely, and it's going to be a good one too. I'm confident in that.
I hope you're ready to get deep into it.
I'm always ready. So I just want to kind of kick things off here and talk to you a little bit about how you got involved in dance music and how you started off DJing and what it was that kind of got you into the scene.
Do you want the short story, the long story?
We'll go for the long story. We've got lots of time here.
Well, we'll see. The story, it's a medium story. So I feel like I don't know, I was kind of lost musically my whole life. I think I listened to what my sister was listening to at the time. I didn't really have my own like choices, my own preference in music until all of a sudden, I'm going to give credit to Chris Shepherd. Do you remember Chris Shepherd, Pirate Radio? Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't think I was maybe not in Canada at that time.
No, right. He was on a main, like, it was a syndicated show, I guess, on mainstream radio, and he'd have like a slot at, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 or something on maybe Fridays, I can't remember, and he'd play a bunch of house music and dance music. And I don't remember when I, started listening to it. Everything's a blur until like a couple of disco house tracks dropped, and then I really remember like him playing Daft Punk when they put out Homework, and I was like, what the hell is this? It just ignited a fire. And then subsequently, like Guy Manuel and Thomas Bangalter put out their own tracks on their own record labels, and he played a bunch of those too, and it's just like I was totally hooked and had to learn like how the music was made. I didn't understand it. I wanted to make that music. That's what I knew. I wanted to make that music. And DJing, I knew was part of it. So I discovered that, there's this underground scene and DJs and raves and all this culture. So I really got into everything just as part of the path to get to making music, because I wanted to make that music.
And that was back in the 90s, correct?
Yeah, that would have been like 95 or 96.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I think for just about everyone who's been involved in dance music to a certain degree, Daft Punk have been really big influences. And I mean, the things that they've done on a global scale has been phenomenal, and it's spanned decades now. And it's quite sad to see in the last few weeks here that they finally announced that they were hanging up the helmets and that was going to be it for them. But I think, especially starting from when you're talking about and all the way through, there's been generations that they've influenced. I know even for myself, when they brought out their project that had all the anime music videos related to it as well, that was something that drew a lot of people in.
Yeah, for sure.
And myself especially, I thought that was so cool when they done that. It was so creative and out of the box, and they really kind of overemphasized electronic music with the crazy helmets and the kind of sounds that they were making at the time.
For sure.
So you kind of started with the DJing with the ultimate goal of making that kind of music.
Definitely.
How did you find it when you first got into the scene in terms of the music that was being played at that time? Because here in the prairies and across Canada to a certain degree, dance music, electronic music isn't as popular and isn't as abundant as it maybe should be. And when you do hear of a lot of electronic music, a lot of people do think EDM is like right off the top. That's where they go to. Whereas yourself, you play a lot more of kind of French house sound, disco sound, and really upbeat.
Getting into the scene when I did, I feel like, I don't know if it's just my memories, being skewed because of nostalgia or something, but I do remember everything being awesome. And like every DJ play, like it was all house and tech house that I would go to, and it was all music I loved. I guess maybe not so much, disco house. Nobody was playing quote unquote French house. Um, but I I fell in love with all kinds of genre. Well, I fell in love with mostly what was being played. I shouldn't say that I fell in love with all kinds of genres. I actually became kind of a snob. Like I went right towards techno actually. Like I fell in love with disco house, disco French house stuff, and then went to raves, heard techno, minimal techno, Detroit techno, tech house, and I was like, this is insane. This is incredible. You could just trip out listening. Like you didn't need to take anything, which I never did. um you just trip out listening to music and hear all these crazy sounds, and it was just so awesome back then. So I started buying techno records because there weren't a lot of great, um well, I shouldn't say there weren't a lot of great house records. I don't think we had a good choice at the record shops we had in the city. We probably had one or two record stores at the time, and um, all of the current DJs that were playing, all the local DJs at the time, they'd get their pick of the records. Like they knew what day all the new stuff came into the store, so they'd come in and they'd get their choice, and they'd get to go through the bins and get everything first, and then whatever was left afterwards, us plebs got to come in and go through that. So I don't know. I guess I didn't find a lot of like that house that I was after, but I certainly fell in love with techno. And so something I actually don't DJ a lot of, or don't play out, or people don't know, but I started really as a techno DJ. And then all that disco house became like a little bit bigger and more popular. And then I think I was buying records online from Satellite Records, some other places. And yeah, then I started really building a collection. So I don't know. I don't know if I answered the question there. I went off topic.
I don't know, that can answer the question perfectly. Like I guess even though the scene was there for it, it was more the techno that you were drawn to anyway, rather than the kind of music that you're playing now that maybe wasn't around as much.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, in a sense, I think you've kind of went well, in comparison to myself, at least, you've kind of went the other way. I kind of started with a lot of that kind of upbeat house, French house, kind of
Okay.
that kind of end. And as I started diving deeper and deeper, it's went into tech house,
Yeah.
then into techno, and then into like psytrance and hardcore and things that are a lot more heavier and a lot darker. And I mean, I guess for yourself, the love of the house sound and those kind of records that you were looking for was always there. It was just maybe not as readily available at that time for you, but um, it seems to have grown to a certain degree. It has grown a bit. It is becoming more popular here. But back then, from my understanding with other people I've spoken to, a lot of it was kind of warehouse parties and
Mm-hmm.
illegal raves and things, which was more centered around that techno and tech house, and certainly with Detroit being right beside Canada, especially on the East Coast over there, like that influence was kind of leaking through into the
Mm-hmm.
scene that was developing up here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I don't know if everybody would agree with me on this, but like I think we're the era in Detroit, right? Like Detroit techno kind of captured an era of what like that community was feeling at the time. I wouldn't say like we were feeling it here, but I don't know. It felt appropriate. Detroit techno, like that sound, that techno sound that was being made, just somehow it was like the punk of our generation or something, right? Like it captured the angst and the mystery and the wonder of technology and what was possible and what people were doing with robots and electronics, and it just fit at the time.
Yeah, and I think it kind of fit the feeling of the city as well. With I know obviously Detroit is more an industrial city, and um, to a certain degree, the music that was being made there, it did fit all of that warehouse vibe, and the people were the scene there was a lot more underground, and uh, just the things that were happening, the people who were involved, they all had that feeling anyway. The music was just an expression of the kind of energy that was in the city at that time, and I think that's what kind of made it so infectious to the especially in that area, right? And once people were kind of going there and experiencing that, it caught on and it started to spread, and you're even seeing it now that it's more prevalent over in Europe, and it's spread over there and is very popular over there. It's the same kind of cities over there that it's really blown up in. You're seeing a lot of that heavier sound, the pure techno sound is coming out of places like Berlin, where it's again very industrial, and all of those kind of Eastern European places like the Ukraine and Serbia and Poland and places like that, which again fall into this similar category.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. Like I think even for a while here in the city, like I I was the only one playing quote unquote French house, and I think if you ask people's definition of what French house is, everyone's going to give you a different answer. But my interpretation of it, like hearing it kind of from the beginning as it was coming out of France and really everyone else replicating it. I know some like great producers like Patrick Alavi. He's from Germany, and I don't know, he made some French house classics, but that sound was really like a techno interpretation of disco. Like you take disco and funk records, and yeah, there was a lot of heavy sampling, but you end up just making these repetitive, hypnotic techno tracks. And I think, coming into the scene, hearing techno, falling in love with that, and then understanding sort of like, oh, this is kind of like what they're doing. This French house is like a spin on techno. Techno is so big. And this idea of like really percussive, rhythmic, loop-based music, but now you're infusing these old funk samples and finding these little like 1, 2, 3, 4 bar riffs that you cut up and move around, and suddenly the bass line's different, and all the elements are baked in there, but then you're putting effects on top of it and stuff. Anyways, that's something I totally fell in love with. That never really picked up. I don't think a lot of other people could stomach French house until it like exploded again in the blog house era, right? Everybody was playing all of a sudden. They were French house classics or whatever, but I certainly could recognize that like techno wasn't for everybody. My best friend, I could not get him, shout out to Eric, I could not get him to appreciate minimal techno. He could not like Richie Houghton. He could not like Marco Carola. Like he would not listen to any of that. It gave him a headache, but he was super into the disco house with me and co-wrote a couple tracks with me actually back in the day. But then you saw like, I don't know, I guess I saw the way I see it is that like that top 40 surge took over again. And then all of a sudden we've got trance and we've got these like anthemic, ballad type tracks with 4 on the floor beats and kind of disco-y bass lines. And I did not like trance. I didn't like trance. I didn't like dubstep. I give all those producers credit, great job on some of those tracks, but I just keep coming back to techno and French house.
Yeah, I think like techno was prevalent there, and then exactly like you said, French house kind of built off of that, and the repetitive style and the kind of hypnotic beats and things like that. And I think obviously for a while there, it took it a little while to get going, but once it really found his feet and people started hearing it more often, um, it probably gained so much traction because those kind of funk songs and disco songs that people were so familiar with and loved so much, it it was recognizable to them. It was something that they could understand, and it was a lot more
Mm-hmm.
easily digestible than some of the other kind of heavier stuff that was maybe somewhere more influenced with something like,
Mm-hmm.
when comparing to maybe rock genres, it's something a little bit closer to like a metal style, whereas the classic rock sound that everyone knows and loves is a little bit easier to listen to, and isn't as kind of out in left field.
Yeah, yeah. I know a lot of disco house, French house producers that love like heavy metal, like metal core stuff. It's weird. I couldn't get into that. But yeah, you had people in those like 2005 to 2000, I want to say like 13 or something, 2014, in that era, all of a sudden like discovering these French house gems from 2001, 2, 3, 4, and they're like, did you know that this is a sample from, XYZ song? It's just cut up and this part's backwards. I'm like, oh my God. See, I'm glad you're finally appreciating all the work that went into obscuring that sample, and you can get it. But yeah, I think that stuff was like over people's heads, or they thought it just wasn't good enough. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, even at that time when all those records were coming out as well, I mean, electronic music to a certain degree had been around, but it wasn't as much in quote unquote like the mainstream, and it wasn't finding its way to as many people as it probably does or did in that period you were talking about between
Yeah.
2005 and 2013. So when people were maybe hearing that music, they were just quick to dismiss it, obviously because they didn't really understand where it was coming from and the things that were being done, and the clever things that these producers were doing to get that sound. And then obviously in that same period, you were saying between 2005 and 2013, you were seeing a lot of that trance stuff coming out and dubstep, and there was some people that were extremely successful with that, and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of got a lot of people, it got their interest, and they started, exactly like we were talking about before, they started diving into electronic music, and they found their path to the kind of genres that appealed to them most. And even myself, when I was younger, I was obviously exposed to a lot of like UK garage stuff and jungle and things like that. And then when the and always heard dance music on the radio with the kind of the older generation that always had the big hits. Like obviously Fatboy Slim was very
Mm-hmm.
prevalent on the radio, and you were hearing a lot of people. And Calvin Harris is another one that I speak about a lot. And I heard some when I was younger. I did listen to a little bit of the kind of trance and dubstep stuff, but it never really sat with me. I just felt like it was a little bit too messy and all over the place. It wasn't as constructed and thought out, and there
The
wasn't
the
for lack of a
dubstep
bit.
stuff
Yeah,
is like, it's really clever production. I have a little short video on myself ranting about this, but like I do think that genre when it broke out is very clever. It's like, it's impressive to listen to as a producer, but it just fatigues easily. There's no groove to it. Like that's what was missing for me. I need solid groove that just keeps you going. You could either dance all night or you can sit back and you can just cruise down the highway for 12 hours because there's just this groove going and you lose yourself in it. But that dubstep stuff, I feel like it fatigues easily. You just get hyped, and like, how long can you stay up that high,
Yeah, it's very intense, and yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. It's hard to stay on that level of energy for so long, and I've even spoke with friends and things about it, and like being in some of these bigger productions and being in Europe and things and seeing these big techno DJs that play some very intense music and some very fast-paced music and things like that. Although it does have that groove and it does have the repetitiveness, it's not necessarily dubstep. There's only so long you can do it for, right? Like I've found myself even uh going to see someone play and doing like a 2 or 3 hour stretch, and after 2 or 3 hours you're like, dude, I just need to go and sit down and take a breather and catch my breath a little bit and just step away from it, and then I'll get back into it and I'm again for another few hours. Whereas with the more house sound, even tech house to a certain degree, it's a little bit easier because
Yeah.
although you do have the highs and lows, it's not it's more manageable when you are at those highs. You're not burning yourself out.
It's almost like you control your highs and lows with the tech house stuff. Like, you find all of a sudden this sound that gets introduced and you latch on, and then your own energy increases while everyone else's maybe didn't. They're just kind of grooving along and you're just all of a sudden into it, but then you pace yourself. But with some of this newer stuff, or the dubstep, like, it's so overt. It's not like they just don't let anything breathe. They don't let people find their own groove. There's something really big about like just allowing people to explore for themselves. Everything's so overt. This is the drop, this is the breakdown, this is the build up. Now you have to dance, obey me. It's like, I don't want to. Just let me chill out. We used to go to parties and it would be like, yeah, whatever. It started at 10, or I got there at 10, right? And you don't leave till 6 a.m. and you want more. So then there would be an after party and you were dancing the whole night. You didn't take a break. You didn't take a break at all. You didn't there's no bar to go to. You didn't stop and you weren't high. Like, you weren't on anything. It was just solid good times. I don't know. And that was, I guess, also like 16, 17 years old. So boundless energy.
Energy to burn, yeah. And no, I know the feeling. I definitely know the feeling. Like I've been there myself on many a times where you go to an event that's put on, or you go to a party, and by the end of it you're going, okay, where are we going next? What's next?
Yeah.
I need more. And even if it's just something as simple as going back to someone's house who
Yeah.
has got like a set up there and they're going to be playing records and it's just
Yeah.
you and a few friends and things, or a gaff as they would call it in Scotland, going back to a gaff and sitting and somebody's playing music and the party just keeps going on. Like,
Yeah.
there's a beauty to it because the music, it doesn't wear you out as much, and you are left wanting more. Whereas with some of the kind of more intense stuff, it's so in your face and so almost feels forced
Mm-hmm.
upon you that it just wears on you so quick, and you're just like, yeah, I could be doing with just taking a break and stepping away.
That
I
might
can't have that anymore.
that might be partially due to like the advent of technology, right? Always brings good things and bad things to whatever art. And um I don't know, as much as a lot of DJs don't want to admit like they're not planning sets, some others are really embracing the fact that they can, check all their tracks for harmonics, are they all in the same, key signature? Do these like mix well? And like, what's going to be my, beginning track? What's the track I'm going to end on? Like, it's just almost like overproduced. There's just I'd like to see more people wing it. Just don't look, just grab a track, try to mix it in, and just go with it. Because I feel like that's what they did back then too. That's what we all did. Like, just had our box of records, and we kind of knew which ones we loved, and we knew which ones we just picked up yesterday, and we really want to play those, even though we haven't even listened to the whole thing yet. We're just like, I know this producer. This is going to be awesome. I don't know. It was just an exploration for everybody. But now there's just so much production going into these big shows and these festivals.
And
Not
it,
necessarily a bad thing. It just takes away from certain aspects that I, quite enjoyed.
and it's crazy to think as well, because that mindset seems to even be more prevalent in the younger DJs who are more up and coming and just getting into like DJing and playing these shows, whereas the kind of older heads and people who have been doing it for a while feel more comfortable just doing that, just winging it and going for it. And obviously
Yeah.
there is a difference in skill level there to a certain degree, but it's almost as if the people who are just coming up is like, I can't make a mistake. I can't embarrass myself. I don't want it. Like, they're putting so much pressure on themselves when they don't really need to, because like, you're not playing in front of like thousands and thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people here. Like, people don't expect you to be perfect right off the bat. Like, when you're starting out and when you're learning and you're still developing your sound, like, nobody's gonna really be that surprised if you do make a mistake. It's more about how you recover from it and how you just keep moving forward, right?
It's true. There's a bit of a joy in hearing a little mistake, because then it's not like, just totally artificial. Um, but you know what? I could go both ways on that topic, because, I learned to DJ so that I could get familiar with the music, so that I could produce. I didn't really want to be a big DJ. Like, I didn't want to, I don't know. I I mean, I started like scratching. I did a lot of turntablism that no one's ever seen me do. That was before the techno. I only had one turntable. I bought one turntable, and so I put like cassettes on and learned to scratch over top of them before I even had battle records. So I had like a Hansel and Gretel record or something I found, and it was like telling a story, and I learned to scratch on that. Um, and like, I learned to beat juggle on two turntables, and I did work out a routine once, and I did think about entering the DMC competition. Aside from that, I didn't want to be like a superstar DJ traveling the world, like with perfect mixing skills. I don't know. I wanted to produce music, but then once you get there and you make a few tracks, you spoil yourself, and you're like, well, especially with Ableton Live came out, the ability to basically produce live. And uh, again, there's that technology kind of ruining things, because it totally ruined it for me. I was like, shit, I could figure out a way to produce live. Because I'm going to admit, like, I'm not the greatest DJ. I'll make mistakes. Beat matching, I really don't want to spend all the time beat matching, when I could do other creative things. Um, so using Ableton to like take all the samples I had ever, accumulated, and split my own tracks apart into drums, bass, pad, lead, keys, and then layer those on top of other tracks of my own, and then work in tracks from other people. So that mix I sent you was a live set, how I used to play it, when I moved away from DJing. It was a very, complicated. I had controllers, Ableton, and I would trigger samples, and that was a live set. Um, Tons of my own tracks in there, some tracks from all kinds of other producers, but you could probably hear that it's layered, and it's like, I don't know. I found that to be a lot of fun, but at some point, I also felt like I need to get back to my roots and just play with some turntables and just mix tracks. And so, I've been doing that lately, digitally and with the vinyl. But yeah, I don't know. It's it's this weird thing where you're like, you don't know where to live, which, well, I don't. I'm not going to speak for other people. I don't know which realm to live in. Like, do I want to overproduce things and make a big set? And, I had dreams of putting together all these lighting rigs and just going absolutely insane, kind of like what Dead Mouse is doing. Like, good work, but I don't know.
Yeah, but
It's,
there's a beauty in that as well, because you it puts you in in a separate category. You're not just a DJ, you're not just a producer. You're doing everything.
yeah.
You're dipping your toe in everything. You're a real artist. You're like, you're able to do the stuff again on vinyl, on the CDJs. You're producing your own songs. You're producing live. You even said you're dipping into lighting and things like that a little bit. Whereas there a lot of people, they just don't want to step away from the one thing they do, and it just makes it so. Like, some people have success with it, obviously, but to a certain degree, a lot of people, they just get repetitive. Like, you go and see someone, and once you've saw it, you've heard it.
Yeah.
The next time you go, it's just the same. Like, they've spent so much time developing one lane, and it's cool because they really do excel in that one lane, and that's fine for a lot of people. But for someone like yourself, clearly, that you never want to be satisfied. You always want to be improving and trying something new and seeing where you can go with it, right?
Well, it's funny what you were just saying. I couldn't help but listen to it with a different set of lenses on. I couldn't help but think about, Dead Mouse versus Daft Punk. Did you ever get to see Daft Punk live when they did their Crazy Pyramid tour?
Nope, I didn't,
Oh,
unfortunately.
I am lucky enough that I did, and I met them after the show in Toronto, actually. But that's a little shameless self congratulation. No, I had to do it. I had to meet them, so I did. But so think about this: like Dead Mouse, right? He does his own lighting. He does all the music. He does everything. Very impressive. But you could take a random, girl off the street, guy off the street, throw them at a Dead Mouse show. They'll either just think it's awesome and they'll think it's just like another concert they went to last weekend with lots of lighting rigs and cool shit or whatever, EDM, they'll call it. Or they'll hate it. They'll be like, whatever, that was okay. Having no idea that he did all of that lighting, right?
Yeah.
And design the stage and whatever. You and I know that, so we're impressed by that. Then on the other hand, you've got Daft Punk, right? And they didn't design their whole stage tour or stage setup, but maybe they had a good hand in it. I don't know. But there's lots of talented artists on that tour that were part of that production that put all that together. A lot of technical artists. It was a team effort. And again, same result. You go to the show, you think it's either the greatest thing you've ever seen, which it was, or you think, oh yeah, it was okay show. It's just another, some EDM. So it doesn't matter. I don't know. It's like, which world do you want to live in? Like, you either have this neurosis that you want to create things and play with new technology, and you want to screw around with lighting. And, right now I'm just getting into virtual production with LED walls, green screen technology, and the new way of filmmaking, because it's just another thing I want to get into and do. Or you do stay in your one lane. Take, like, let's say Carl Cox. You just do one thing. He's a great DJ, right? He's not
Phenomenal.
known for his lighting. He's not known for his, you name it. He's just a fucking great DJ. And he just sticks to that one thing. But does that get old? No.
No.
No. And you go see Carl Cox 2 nights in a row, it's not going to be the same set. You go see Dead Mouse 2 nights in a row, it's going to be the same set. You go see Daft Punk 2 nights in a row, going to see the same set. So what's it going to be? I don't know. It's like, that's why I want to get back to DJing a little bit and find and embrace this improvisation that once was in my life so much.
I guess that to a certain degree that comes from within as well, that decision of which way you want to go. Because for some people, they maybe just understand, like for someone like Carl Cox, he's not a DJ to put on these massive productions. He's not a DJ to get all this attention. I mean, he's been doing this for what, 30 years,
Yeah.
give or take now. And the guy's just in it because he absolutely loves music.
Yeah.
All kinds of music. And you see, and it reflects it. When you see like his vinyl collection, you're like, holy shit, dude, it takes up like half of his house, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And like that passion for music is what's brought him success. He doesn't need any of that extra stuff. You just know every single time you go and see him, he's going to come with something different. He's going to come with something creative. He's going to find the right track for that exact time. And he can do it over and over and over again, just purely through the music. Whereas for some people, when they're doing the same thing over and over again, when they're only looking for music and playing shows, and it gets tiring on them, it wears on them. They maybe don't have the same, they still love music, but they maybe don't have the same level of passion for it as someone like Carl Cox does. And then you got to step away and go, okay, what else can I challenge myself with? Like I've already done this. I need something new to change it up. And then again, like yourself, like you're saying now, you're then going back to it now that you've achieved these other things, these other goals that you kind of wanted to learn and wanted to do for yourself. There's always the option to going back for it. And then once you do go back to like you were saying, you were aiming to go back to the kind of more winging it and creative and improvisation style, it's going to be exciting again for you.
Yeah. Well, and to give you some context, I think you already know this, but to give the listeners some context as well. So on that journey of learning music, learn to DJ, then learn to produce on an old computer, and then graduated with all the new technology, Ableton, whatever, and then was able to do cool stuff on stage that crossed the line between DJing and live PA, live production, a lot of samples in the computer, controllers on stage. But what that also gave birth to was a second project called Get Famous, which I started with a very good friend of mine who is a very talented singer and guitarist, and he just he could just riff on my tracks. And like the first day I met him, the first 5 minutes, that's what he did. He was like, "Oh, you made that track? Cool." And he's just riffing, and I was like, my goodness. And I think at the time Cassius's second album came out, and it was like their Pink Floyd album almost. Do you remember? I don't know if you've ever heard that album. Oh, Rev. I don't know how to pronounce that. I should. And then it had so much guitar on it, and I was just like, fuck, I want to make this music. This is what I want to do. It's French house, but with live elements and singing. So anyways, long story short, working with Aaron, I went from being a guy who like heard a disco house track to wanting to make music, and then working with a live musician, and then working up to the point where I could perform live on stage playing instruments. Now, I took piano a few times growing up. I think like there was probably a music bug in me somewhere. It's in the family with a few people, but I had quit every time I took piano, and like, it just wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to play drums. Like nobody would buy me drums. So I don't know, for me personally, it was like an achievement to go from essentially audio engineer to musician on stage, having the confidence to play. I would play like a guitar, and I would also have my controllers and triggering stuff in Ableton. So I'd be playing bass, and then it would be programmed to change. And all of a sudden I'd be playing, it would go from bass guitar, and then I'd be playing keys, and then I'd be playing lead. So I don't know, having the confidence to play live on stage like that with other musicians, and like learning how to get in the groove with other musicians and freestyle, like that's something else entirely, right?
Yeah.
And but it also hit a brick wall for me personally. I was like, there's too many technical issues in this. constantly controllers would die. MIDI wouldn't work. Like, forgot a hard drive at home once. Like, needed to go get it. And like the setup, the teardown. And once you turn yourself into a band, when you're used to DJing, when you're used to showing up with like even a thumb drive, some people can show up to shows with a thumbstick and be like, yeah, I'm playing a gig tonight. But here we are, like bringing in flight cases full of gear, computers, controllers, and then it all like has to be troubleshooted 30 seconds before a show. It just got to a point where I was like, I don't think I can do I don't think I can do this anymore. Like, I'm either quitting music or I just got DJ again. I just got to throw records together and I'm going to live stream them so that it forces me to do it. So I've been doing that. Anyways, long story.
Yeah. No, you're quite right. I think as impressive as it is, and you're seeing a lot of people having success with it, a lot of people don't even they admire obviously the creativity level is way up there, but to a certain degree it comes with its fair share of added pressure and added stress and things that could go wrong and just extra stuff that when you're doing over and over and over, like if you're doing it once, then it's bad enough. But if you're doing it over and over and over again, it starts to wear on you and it starts to, and going back to what we were just talking about as well with Carl Cox, with the love of the music and the love of doing this and performing, it starts to kind of take that away to a certain degree where you're just so fed up and so tired of having to deal with all this extra stuff that wasn't present before, that you just need to kind of take all of that out of the equation and remind yourself why it was or what it was you started with in the first place, and try and keep things simple and make it easy for yourself so you can enjoy it rather than constantly having to worry about what's going to go wrong next.
Yeah, exactly. Well put. That's where I'm at anyways. I don't know where other people are at. You've done a few of these shows and I apologize. I haven't heard them. I don't know if they're up yet. I apologize, busy
That's
guy,
right.
but you've had some chats and I'm eager to listen to them. Like, are you asking kind of the same questions and are people giving you the same answers? Like, you're taking the temperature of people, of the culture right now. I'm interested to hear.
To a certain degree, just talking to people about their own personal experiences. That's kind of the aim for this whole series and the whole reason why I'm doing this, is just to speak to the people that are actually involved and speak about their point of view and their journey within music and what it is that's brought them to today. So in prior episodes, I've obviously had on the first episode I had Nathan, who's also out of Winnipeg, who you've known for a long time, and a lot of the talk that we had was more about the kind of promotion and event side of things, and along with obviously himself as in the music that he plays. And I also had Immigrant Muscle from Toronto, who are more purely DJs and they are very much into vinyl, and they don't really take themselves too seriously. They're pretty easygoing, laid back, and just want to have a lot of fun, and they are a lot of fun. I mean, those guys are great. So like talking to them about kind of some of the crazy stuff that they've done and they've been involved with, that was also pretty cool. And then the episode before this one was one of my friends from Scotland who they're doing a kind of similar thing to me out there, but their kind of whole production is more based around like have you saw like the circle videos that are made and all the crazy locations, like people playing at the pyramids, and there's one on a hot air balloon and things like that. So they do a lot of things where they're combining like iconic locations across Scotland and tourism with the kind of talented artists that are on the come up and who are just kind of on the verge of breaking through, and they're working with those kind of guys, so that was something else. It was cool. Whereas with this, obviously, yourself as a very creative person, and you've got a lot of different aspects to the things that you've been doing within this, is something that's probably a lot deeper.
Well, thank you.
Than a lot of the other ones have been. So that's kind of why I've been chasing you around to get you on this show, because I know like I said, I've been following you on Instagram and been listening to some of the stuff you've done, and I know, and I've just, even from looking at like your Instagram page and the SoundCloud and the songs that you make and the music that you make, and you just seem to be very creative and very
Well, thank you.
interesting for a lot of people. So
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's funny too, like, because I love this, disco house genre so much, French house, but the tracks I end up making for the most part aren't that. They're a little bit. They're hard to DJ, that's for sure. That's the number one complaint everyone's always told me, because I never wanted to make them for people to DJ. I didn't want to give them a 32 bar, just percussive intro. They were a little bit more like the French house tracks were there. 4.5 minutes. They started awkwardly. You didn't know if that was the first snare or the second snare. And it's like, why isn't there a kick drum as the downbeat? Like, they were incredibly hard to mix. And I thought, okay, that's how they're doing it. And I never went that far, but I certainly made tracks that were very hard to mix. Because I just wanted to listen to them more. But I don't know. I haven't made music in a while. I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tracks that I haven't finished. And if you've seen some of the stuff I've been doing lately with like live streams, I've been participating in this national raid train. Shout out to the Disco National crew for putting that together. That's been a lot of fun. And that's like holding my feet to the flames to DJ, because like left to my own devices, I'm slipping from music. So they they put this thing on every couple of weeks, and then there's a DJ across Canada that starts consecutively. We're doing a raid train on Twitch right across Canada, DJ in every city. It's very cool. It's forcing me to DJ. And then I don't know if you've also seen, but I've done like a number of chats essentially with other musicians. They're on my YouTube channel, and I think some of them are on my YouTube channel, some of them are on Facebook. Basically, I'm doing chats like this in this setup with musician friends I know. Some of them are DJs, some of them are singers, various musicians. I plan to have on some other producers. Just chatting about like it seems like everybody I know is in a slump as well. I don't know if it's like the last year that happened or politics or something else, but people are like, everyone's reeling to find their energy again, I guess. Or maybe it's just part of like getting older and slipping out of the scene. I'm not sure, but for me personally, I could say like I'm having a hell of a hard time trying to hang on to the motivation to do music, because it is and always has been such an intense, laborious effort. Even though you love the music, you love doing it, it's like you're doing it, it's like heroin. Like, it's bad for you because there's a supply and demand issue. There's so many producers, so many DJs. Like, the chances of succeeding out there are they're nothing. And it's like, you could put your all into this. You could be Carl Cox. You could just be DJing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I think that's what he does. He doesn't sleep.
yeah.
And DJing or producing or creating lighting setups, you could be doing crazier shit than Deadmau5, whatever. It's like, there's a good chance no one will care. No one will see it. We're just saturated with Instagram models, like, yoga pants up a butt crack will get more eyeballs than the 6 months it took you to put together your cool stage event that you're like rigged up in your basement during COVID to show off to the world, and you're like, this is gonna do it, man, everyone's gonna be so impressed. No, because there was a new color of yoga pant that blew up and you could see camel toe, and yeah, that's more popular.
Yeah, no,
That's
like
it.
I think everybody's finding that right now. And it's just
Sorry,
because
ladies.
in the last year or so, everyone has been like everyone's I think when I was speaking to Immigrant Muscle, they kind of put it best. Everybody's been reduced to being a bedroom DJ to a certain
Yeah.
degree now. Everyone's back in the same level playing field, but I think that's wearing on people
Yeah.
due to the people who are putting in. I know a lot of people who are involved in music and are musicians who have just started producing throughout the COVID and everything, and they're putting all their time into it, and they're sitting at a computer, and you don't have the opportunity to showcase it as much now because everyone's doing it, right? Everyone's
Exactly.
bought a controller, everyone's got speakers, they're going on Twitch, they're going on Facebook live streams, they're going on Instagram live, and it's everywhere to the point where people are just like, yeah, we know it's there. Like
Yeah.
it's there's so much of it. Like what it's harder to find the quality ones. And on top of that, it takes away from the community as well. And
Right.
I know especially for myself, that was one of the major things
Totally.
that I loved about dance music was the fact that you can
Totally.
go out and you can this is even from like someone who's attending shows standpoint, like you can go out and you can be on a dance floor and you can meet someone who's you've never met before, who's from
Yep.
another country, who, and it's like you can get on and you can have a great
Plur.
time, you dance and you meet.
Plur.
Whereas
Do you
with
ever hear that phrase? The
sorry,
term? The acronym PLUR. PLUR. That was
no,
the thing when we were ravers. Plur, man. Peace, love, unity, respect. Plur. That was the acronym for the
yeah,
for the scene. We have no unity now. There's no culture. It's just
no,
people watching DJs. Yeah, it's gone.
and
Sorry to cut you off.
no, that's fine. And you're spot on with that. That is the whole, and it always has been the foundations that this whole thing was built on, going back to when electronic music was really coming about. It was a lot of I guess minorities to a certain degree, where you were seeing a lot of it stemmed from like LGBTQ community
Totally.
and other aspects like that. And that was a lot of the reason why I wanted to do this podcast and this series, because in Canada,
Oh
although
man,
there is things happening, everyone seems
it
to
was
be so
suppressed.
selfish.
It
And
was suppressed. Yeah.
yeah, like everyone only
Can we
cares
touch?
about what they're doing.
Can we touch on that for a second? Well, yeah. I mean, there's that angle, but let me offer an alternate point of view, my own personal, and maybe people won't agree with this, but at the same time that I discovered all that music. Wait, and when did you come to Canada?
I've been here 7 years in August, so 2014.
So I would think that you missed the majority of this, but you're out in Saskatchewan, which is a very similar experience to Winnipeg here. Um, so there was a fairly like homophobic element to dance music, right? Like I guess it probably would have started way before my time. It probably carried with disco. Disco had its negative connotations among the rock musician heads or whatever. I don't know. I know that when I was in high school and I discovered all this music, I was totally called. What platform are you putting this on? I don't know what words I can or cannot say here. I don't want you to be like
Say whatever. I'm not making any
banned.
money off of this anyway, so
All right. So I was like called a fag all the time for listening to house music, like constantly. Got in fights, people wanted to beat me up all the time. Fag for having yellow hair and big pants and all of that. But that lasted a really, really long time. until I think you had like trance on mainstream airwaves, which wasn't even at like trance's, height. I don't know what year that would have been, but you could really feel that release. The LGBT community made great strides, and there's more, more acceptance came. And that broke probably like, I don't know, 2010, I want to say, or something. Like you could feel the pressure relieve, and it was acceptable to listen to dance music or EDM. But like before that, I tell you, here in Winnipeg, you would risk a beatdown if they heard you listening to electronic music. Like, I swear. So I don't know. It's like that did not help in exposing people to electronic music, because it's social pressure. It's like you're either going to be called a fag or beaten down, or you might as well just stay clear away and keep listening to your Nickelback or AC/DC or something. Nothing wrong with AC/DC. I didn't say nothing wrong with Nickelback, but nothing wrong with AC/DC and rock music. I like a lot of that 70s rock, 70s, 80s rock. Anyways, that was a huge component, I feel. Maybe people don't agree, but in Winnipeg, in Canada, man, like maybe 2010. Did I say 2010? I think 2010 is probably giving it too much, being too generous. I think maybe it's only lifted in the last like 5 years or something. Like not even like it's. I've recently encountered guys and girls that I know for a fact would have been totally snub nosing electronic music and thinking it's for it's for the gays or something,
Yeah.
but they're into it now. So I know like a lot of work has been done there. So I think that was a big component.
Yeah.
It's my perspective.
No, it has developed in the recent years where more people are becoming more accepting to it, but to a certain degree it is still there within North America as a whole, not even just in Canada. Like it's present across North America. And I'm not saying that's everyone and everywhere, but when you compare it to Europe, it's a lot less accepted to here as
Yeah.
to what it is over there.
Yeah.
People over in Europe, from personal experience, they don't really give a shit. As long as you're cool with them and everyone's sound and you have a laugh and this and that, like they're pretty inclusive and easygoing and understanding and everything else. Whereas here there's a lot of people who are so full of themselves and self-centered to the point where they want to call names and point fingers just because you're not the exact same as the idea that they have in their head as to what people should be.
People are afraid of what they don't understand, right?
Yeah.
They're afraid of change. They're afraid of difference. Call it them being full of themselves if you want, but I've always sort of viewed it as just they weren't full enough of themselves to allow themselves to explore.
Yeah.
They're very weak-minded, very. I don't want to. I want to say conservative, but I don't want to say it in a political sense. Like not labeling people, but they're very just conservative with what they would allow themselves to explore. There wasn't a great sense of wanting to discover new things. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to put that into words better, but certainly like I'm going to hold on to what's safe, what I understand, and anything that's different is scary and it needs to be stomped out for the fag that it is.
And see, to a certain degree, these same people who have this ideology, who are so fast to write it off, who are not comfortable in themselves enough to even give it a go, they generally find that when they give it a go, they're the
Yeah,
ones who fall in love with it. They're the ones who are
totally.
all over it.
Well, it's like, yeah, a bunch of suppressed sort of obedience and control. And it's like they're the ones now suppressing themselves. And then finally, when that dam breaks and they allow themselves to experience it, it's like, oh man, look out. That is the new ambassador.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you're finding a lot of places are now that people are becoming a lot more inclusive and a lot more open minded, in the sense where you're seeing, I guess, by social media highlighting a lot of these issues and things like that, you're starting to see it become a little bit more mainstream over here and developed. Although the events that are being put on and are being allowed to be put on are almost over the top and limited. I mean, especially in Saskatchewan, you don't see many places that are allowing a full on electronic music event and things like that. And the places that are putting them on, um, they're putting them on just not because they are supporting, but it's because they what's the words I'm looking for here? They're
They
putting it
want to
on
make that
just to,
money.
yeah, exactly, to make the money and to make it look like they're supporting. And that's not everyone. I'm not saying that because out here there are a few people who are putting on great events and who have the right thing at heart and love the music and everything else. And there's lots of good artists coming out of here who love house music, disco, techno, all these other things. But there's a few of them that are like, okay, so we're going to put this event on, and you guys are going to play just because they want the money, because they don't want anyone else to have it. They're seeing the success it's having, and they're just chasing the money, and it takes away from the atmosphere that's supposed to be around these events when people care about money too much.
Absolutely. You nailed it. I mean, as I get older, I sort of I'm drifting away from my super anarcho communist ideologies, but like, there's something to when it was all free. There really is something to when it was all just because we wanted to do it. As soon as you introduce that heart, like it's just for money. I don't want to sound like one of these that says as soon as capitalism got involved, it went to hell. I mean, I run a business now and I employ people. So I embrace capitalism. So you want to hate me for that? Go right ahead. But I think that, yeah, the shows just became money grabs. And back when everything kind of was that like hippie commune vibe, and everybody was just like, hey, man, free back rubs. Those were the days. Like the parties were better and everybody just joined in to have a good time. You didn't show up to expect a good show and I paid $50 for this and look at this lighting rig. It's not even that good and the sound wasn't that good. I'm going on Instagram and say this was shit. Like I don't know. There's something back there.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. Like, those were the days, and I guess you're always going to look back on those days, and they were amazing times, and you're kind of going to have a little bit of rose tinted glasses, but they really were the days, and that was the whole thing it was built on, and that's the way it should be, and that's what made it so great. And you're even seeing now, like, if you look at one of the staples of dance music in Ibiza, right? Now they've got all these crazy clubs, world's biggest club, and it's gonna be €70 to get in here. If you want a drink, you're gonna be paying €40 for a drink, €20 for a bottle of water. Like,
Awesome.
look,
Sounds like a
I
great
I
time.
get it. I get it. People like money. I like money. Everyone
Yeah,
likes money.
sure.
But at the same time, you still got to have the respect for where it came from, and you've got to find the balance in it. And a lot of the people who are stripping things back and putting on a good show, they're few and far between these days, and they're hard to find. But I mean, everything's become modernized, but the people who are putting on those shows, wherever you may find them, they're for the purists, the people who really know and really love the music and really understand the roots and where it came from, are the people who are going to actually appreciate the little things and
Mm-hmm.
just the kind of freedom to express themselves and get involved.
On one hand, those, a club like that, I don't know too much about that club, but like on one hand, places like that. So again, my business is in the field of marketing, so I always look at everything through the lenses of marketing. But like, on one hand, a place like that would be appealing to people of, my generation that did grow up and had this affinity for the scene. Much like when I was like 18, there was a club in the city that had a 25 plus room. So you had to be 25 years old to get into it. And then you'd have like whiskey and smoke cigars in there and stuff. And some fantastic promoters and DJs that I was really good friends with threw an event in there, in the whole club. So you could party your ass off in the main room and then go into the 25 plus room. I think a club like that's really expensive has that velvet rope that like you don't expect a lot of, teenagers or 21-year-olds are going to puke all over themselves. It's just that filter, that funnel that'll keep them out. So maybe there are people that are a little bit older that are super nostalgic and passionate about the industry or the scene, and they want to go and they see a place like that and they're like, perfect, it's way too expensive for the trash to get in, right? They might think something like that. On the other hand, I think there is a lot of disposable income in the youth generations, and it's precisely that group that might be ruining it for everyone else. Like people that would go to the fire festival.
And that comes hand in hand with social media as well, right? Because I mean, see, when you go to these places, like myself, I've been a couple of times, and like with friends that I go with, like they love the music. They're there for a good time to enjoy themselves. They understand why that place is so iconic and where it's came from. And you see some people, and it's like they're there. They don't have a clue who's playing. They're
Right.
there just to take pictures and post on Instagram.
Right.
To wear all their the most expensive designer clothes they can find, and look who I met, celebrities, and this, and it's like it just takes away from the experience, and it turns a lot of people off. And I think what you're seeing, relating this back to what's going on here, especially in Saskatchewan, there's not enough clubs that are putting on something authentic now, where the youth are kind of taking over all of these clubs. And you don't see, like when you go over there and you go to the places like like Pikes, for example, which is a very iconic place, is a very hard place to get into, and it's very small and it's stuck to its guns, and most of the people who go there are there for the music, and it's always been the same since it started back in the 80s. There's nothing for the kind of older demographic where people who appreciate this music can go out and they don't have to deal with all the Instagram models and the people who are just out there to get blackout drunk and throw up all over themselves and just cause problems and everything. Like there's not enough of that here.
Yeah, I don't think there ever will be. Like, on one hand, I want to say you're right, and yeah, someone's got to do something about it, and the world needs to change. But I don't know. I've seen my fair share of like 21 plus, 25 plus clubs come and go. I don't, I don't think that's a market that ever really gets that needs to be catered to. I think people just get too old; they fall right out of the scene. Like
Yeah.
I think I'm rare, where I would love to go to a club tonight and puke all over someone and watch them puke all over me. I don't know if I can shake that. I'm getting in my late 30s here, but man, I still find enjoyment in having a rough night. Um, and my fiance does not appreciate that. And so, I'm gonna have to start settling down and all that crap. But I love myself a good time, and I don't need no 25 plus bar. I want to go to where it's cool until they say, "Hey man, hey dad, you're too old. Get the fuck out of here."
You're never too old. You're never too old. If like, see, for a lot of people take life too seriously, right? And even people at my age, I'm 23, right? And I know a few people who it's like, I'm settling down. I'm gonna have. I need to buy a house. I need to do this. I need to be financially stable. I need to get a good job. And it's like, yeah, but see if you get a good job and you're financially stable and you don't go out and you you don't have a good time, then you're just gonna be miserable all the time.
Yeah.
You- You're like you're not going to enjoy like you go and you work this job that you tell yourself that you've always wanted and you don't work it for any good reason. You literally work this job just to make money and don't enjoy it. What is the
Well,
point in that? You're just wasting your life away. Like the way I look at it is every single person has a set amount of time on this earth. You can't change that. You don't know how long that's going to be. And at the end of it, when you're laying there like fiance, wife, kids, whatever it's going to be, family, and don't get me wrong, I love my family and I love all my friends and everyone around me. But when you're taking your last breath, the only person that you've got to speak to is the voice in your head, and you've got to ask yourself the question: in the time that I was here, was I happy and did I do the things that I wanted to do? Did I accomplish the things I wanted to accomplish? And did I get everything done and have a smile on my face while doing it? And for a lot of people, sadly, the answer to that question is going to be no. So for me, like, I, I think I'm a bit the same as you in terms of like, although I'm going to grow up and I'm going to get older, I'm always going to have that kid in me that's just going to want to have fun and keep and just keep it alive in me, that fire. Like, where what is the point in doing this if you don't enjoy it? And that's in absolutely everything in life that you do.
I suspect that having children changes all of that, right? Like you and I sitting here right now saying these things. I'm, let's have another chat 2 years from now, and maybe I might have some offspring, and I will be the dadliest dad you've ever met. And I'll think that, 9 o'clock is bedtime, and all these hooligans drinking all night long. I have no idea what they're doing to themselves, or something like that. I suspect that. I think that once you have offspring, it like kind of changes things. Um, but you're right. Like I think that way. I think. Well, I'm type 1 diabetic too, and there are challenges to go along with that. But I don't want to be morbid. I don't want to this come across the wrong way, but like I don't know that I'll have as much time as everyone else will get, and so I wonder what, my lifespan will be. If I take good care of myself, maybe it'll be fine, but there have been some complications already. So I don't know. And I don't want to just party my ass off my whole life. I want to have fun, and I want to, like you said, when that final moment comes, I want to be able to answer that question, be like, yeah, I had fun. I did all the things I wanted to do, and those things change, right? Those things could be like I got married, I had kids, and I bought a house. I bought a nice big house and put money away for kids and my for college, and I paid for children in some foreign country. I don't know. UNICEF funds. I don't know. I guess everyone's different, but let's be honest here. We're talking about party culture, right? A rave scene. So yeah, we want to party till we're too old.
Yeah,
Till we're
well,
dead.
that's it. Like
Oh,
everyone is different, and everyone has different times where that expires and that becomes old to them. And
yeah.
yeah, each to their own. But if these are the things that it is that you want to do, and you're restricting yourself from doing them just because you make excuses that you can't, then you're just lying to yourself, right? And like
Yeah.
obviously, like you said, when you have kids, things change, and life is always evolving, and things are always uh they're always changing, and the things that are most important to you will be different as the years go on. But I even look at someone like my own grandmother. My own grandmother will be in her 70s now, and she still gets together with her friends. They get on a bus and they go and drive up to the Highlands in Scotland. And if you go and sit in her house the night before, she's got like a collection of the little miniature bottles which she keeps, and she fills them all with vodka. Just spikes her drinks out, and like she's in her 70s and she's still loving it. Like, and it's not like she's going out and going to a rave and partying and whatever else, but she still finds the time to enjoy herself. Like, she doesn't stress about all these extra things and feel like she has to do things just because of her age. She's not age restricted. She just has fun and has a smile on her face all the time. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand, is it doesn't necessarily have to be within one set realm, but as long as you're happy with what you're doing, man, like nobody can tell you any different. Like, there's no age restrictions, there's no color restrictions, there's no sexuality. Just fucking enjoy your life.
Have fun every day. That should be a
Exactly.
shirt. Let's make a shirt. Just have fun every day. At least once a day. Just have some fun. That could be selfish fun. Should it be have selfish fun every day? I don't know. No. Just have fun every day. Just make sure, even the most grueling, shitty days when you're working selflessly for someone else for some other reason, just take 15 minutes and just have fun for yourself. Maybe it's drinking. Maybe it's not drinking. Maybe you just love a good old fashioned game of checkers. Maybe not. We like to party. Let's be real. Let's keep it in the genre here.
Yeah, we do like to party, and I mean, like, it's just it doesn't happen enough in Saskatchewan. It doesn't
Oh
happen enough
God.
in the
I feel so
prairies.
bad for you.
It doesn't happen enough in the prairies, and
No.
I'm hoping to make a little bit of a change to that, and I'm hoping uh, that by doing this we can put a little bit of light and provide a little platform for the people who are really doing it and really believing in this kind of thing and doing great things to stand on, and get more people involved. That's always the goal, is to get as many people involved in this as you can, change perceptions, and keep moving forward. And I think I've kind of chased you coming on this podcast because you, a bit like myself, understand that, and obviously reflects in the music that you play and the sets that you play. They're all so much fun and they're so infectious that you just can't help but get on the dance floor and move your feet. So yeah, I think that was one of the major things that I wanted to highlight here with this episode.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, all of the different aspects that you touch on here, and that you're involved with, and creatively and as a businessman. But yeah, just you kind of embodied everything that is within dance music,
Stop.
as well as anyone else in the prairies
All
does.
right.
So I mean,
Well, I appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, I think you're doing exceptional work with this too. I commend you, my friend. I think your passion is I think it's legit. I think what you're doing is noble. You've passed the test. Welcome to the Prairie Dance Music crew of non-existence.
well, the only way
No,
is up from here. The only way is up from here. We'll just keep getting
exactly.
better. So, no, I appreciate you joining us for this week, uh,
Thanks for having me.
and again,
Good
if
chat.
if you haven't checked out the mix yet, please go and do that because it's absolutely phenomenal. I've been listening to it. I got it a little bit early. I've had it on repeat here. Um,
Nice.
but no, thank you for coming on and speaking to us and giving us your perspective. And hopefully in the future, I have the whole studio set up here, so we're going to be doing some
Yep.
in-person stuff. And when all this craziness gets lifted, we'll hopefully get you into Regina, and we'll
Anytime.
We'll put some shows on and we'll get you in the studio and can talk in person. But yeah, no, I
Anytime, my
really
friend.
appreciate you taking this time and sitting down and speaking to me, John, because
Yep.
you've been doing this a long time and you've seen a lot. So someone like me who's pretty new to the prairies and new to Canada, it's cool to get the perspective of someone who's really seen everything develop up to this point, right?
I've also been living in a bit of a bubble, just doing my own thing. So I think you're going to encounter a lot of awesome people in this journey with this podcast. There's so many talented people, interesting people, promoters, DJs, producers, all across the prairies and, just coast to coast. So, yeah, this is exciting. So cheers to you. I'm out of beers, but
Yeah,
here's my cheers.
Cheers.
I think it's bad luck to cheers an empty can, right?
I don't know. I have to go and get something
Yeah.
elsewhere.
But yeah, thanks for having me. Anytime. I'll come back anytime.
Yeah, thank you. And just the last thing, if you wanted to kind of let everyone know where they can find you and the work that you're doing on Instagram, SoundCloud, Twitch, all of that.
Yeah, no, probably not. See, I live my life in a very obscure universe. Nobody knows where to find my stuff, and I like it that way. No, it's holy God, this is like a topic in and of itself. You can attempt to search for me on Google, and you can look for JNL, and that will probably turn up 0 results. So you could look for JNL Cinema Funk, which is like an extension I've had to add to the name just to differentiate and be found on platforms. A horrible like SEO attempt. Look, YouTube, you can go on YouTube channel, Cinema Funk. Twitch, I'm on Twitch. What is it? I don't know. It's either JNL_Cinema Funk or JNL.CinemaFunk. Instagram, JNL.FM. You can go to my website, which is www.jnl.fm, like the radio FM.
Well, there you go, folks. If you're looking for something to do to keep you occupied, keep
like
you
a
busy,
treasure hunt.
In quarantine, you can try and find JNL and all the amazing stuff he's doing. But
Watch
again,
for
John,
me in the upcoming Marvel movie that's coming out. I'm not in it, but you can still watch for me.
There you go. So thank you to everyone for tuning in this week and the continued support that you're showing me. It's been my absolute pleasure doing these week in, week out for you and seeing all the support that all the nice messages everybody sent me. If you haven't already, check out John's mix, was posted on Friday, and check out all of the other mixes and episodes that we've had posted in weeks gone by here. And again, next week we'll be back with another great episode. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and God bless.
Real talk.